Is this you? I can't tell. No, it's not. This one? Yes, this is it. I'll just do this real quick for all the ones as we go in. Okay. So hopefully that solves the issue. If not, let me know.
Yes, hopefully you can hear my soothing and sexy voice. Please, do not let it distract you from the quality of these wonderful and luscious games.
Oh my. I'm going to see if he's in a ladder game right now or what he's doing. So I'll be right back.
Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Bob. I'm sorry, Bob. I'm sorry that you wouldn't call my voice sexy and luscious. Yeah, I think we're going to get started in just a little bit then.
Oh, alright. So I think Makomi should have just logged in. Is this correct? Where is he? Oh, there he is.
Oh, there he is.
For our first match today, we're going to see Makomi representing
Nope. Don't do that.
Alright. Okay. Right.
I wouldn't call it that. Well, I'm mainly saying it because you keep doing funny voices, and then people are complaining about your voice. So I don't know if they're just saying that because of you doing funny voices or not.
Oh, I can see why that would cause problems.
Yeah. As Bob Moo laughs.
But I was requested to sing a song.
Oh God, is it Friday?
Dude, Complexity Cat's got nothing on me.
I don't want to hear him sing ever. I'd be happy.
I can hear my voice. My voice sounds fine on the stream.
Okay, sounds good.
Banelings, 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 oh.
Alright, so why don't
I'm not proud of what I just did.
Do you want to just go over the players' stats right now as we're waiting for the games to go underway?
Yeah, sure. We can go ahead and get started with those. So yeah, let's just go down the list then. So, and just citing all the general math statistics are based on the Liquipedia pages for these maps, and any of the individual player stats is based on their Collegiate Star League performance for this year.
Okay.
So we're going to start off with the first game, or the first game that's going to be played, and that's going to be Makomi versus Area Jabroni.
Jabroni.
And, Jabroni. Sorry.
That's what I'm going to call him during our cast, just so we don't keep calling him different names.
Jabroni? Okay.
Yeah,
Jabroni sounds good.
You're looking at something very intently, and I don't know what.
I'm looking at my statistics right now.
Okay.
Actually, wait. No, I'm not on stream. Okay. Cool.
Are we just talking about our first game, or are we going down the list very fast?
Yeah, so let's go down. Let's really quickly just go down the list.
Okay.
So the next game is going to be Bob Moo for Purdue University against Ultram on MLG dual sites. And I don't know why. I really don't like this map. Yeah, Zerg versus Protoss. I really don't like this map, though. I'm really surprised that it's still in the map pool.
Isn't this the map that Protoss likes, though? Or is that the other D one?
I'm trying not to be. I'm not trying not to be biased again.
Lame. You gotta take your side and stick with it, man. No flip floppers here on this stream.
No flip floppers. You're either with us or you're against us.
Go back to Belcher Beach with that attitude.
Go back to Belshore Beach. But I don't want to forget anymore.
Okay, so then our third game is on Scorch Haven, which is our 2 versus 2 with Jabberwock in the booth versus, what is this, Neurosis and Finchy. Oh my. And I'm actually really looking forward to that game. Jabberwock and the booth have done a 2 in the past and they won, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then our fourth game is on GSL Daybreak with Marazer and Hit in a ZVZ. But our first matchup, we'll go in a little bit more detail. Now you're on camera, by the way. So in the left section, we have Makomi's statistics, and we can see that he has, that's right, 9-0, 2-0, and 1-0 for the latter season. So that makes him a 100% win rate Protoss.
I know, I saw that and I was really surprised, and that's really impressive to be able to do that. And it's not that he hasn't been, playing a lot in the Collegiate Star League. It's not like he has one game. He's actually, let me see. He has 2 wins versus Terran, 5 wins in Protoss versus Protoss, 2 wins in Protoss versus Zerg, and 2 wins in 2v2. So, I mean, he's had a pretty good variety in his matchups and all the maps he's been playing as well.
Yeah, and just to note, one of his victories in a PvT, we do have listed with Clash JPEG, and he's on Team IU, and IU, I think, finished first in the Central Division. So don't take that win any lightly. Makomi is a force to be reckoned with, even in a PvT matchup. And then we don't have as much statistics with Jabroni over here because he hasn't played against Protoss yet this season. But as we can see, he's played a lot of ladder games, and he seems to have a lot of success, being around a little bit over a 500 player. So it's really, really good.
Yeah, and even though we don't have a good gauge on his TVP matchup, he does seem to be pretty successful in his other matchups. He's gone 4-1 in Terran versus Terran. He's got 2-2 in Terran versus Zerg. So then that basically gives him 6 out of 9 games he's won. That's 66% win rate. Hey, I would take that. So I mean, definitely probably going to be a very strong player.
Yeah, and this should be a very, very good match. Looking at the player match history, he has been matching up against a lot of the GM players about every 4th game, if I remember correctly. So, and the same thing with Makomi. He has faced people, I know it's not Protoss, but he's played against Hydra on the ladder. He's played against, I think, Sheth on the ladder. So, I mean, these players both have extremely high MMR, so this should be a very good game. And even beforehand, Jabroni was doing one of my favorite tricks, which I try to tell everyone who's getting ready to play a tournament. He was starting a game on Shakuris by himself and then hitting continue on the game. And so he could practice his build order, but when he leaves the game, if you try to look up his match history, it says that he spent 0 seconds in that game and shows no information on what he was practicing with the build. And I really like that strategy. But as we're saying all this, it looks like Game 1 is going underway. Are you ready for the Spear Dragon?
Oh, I am so pumped for this. And you know what? You know what my favorite part about this match is?
What's that?
It's a Protoss versus Terran, our favorite matchup to
I know. This almost never happens. Of all the weeks that we've played, I think we've been able to cast 1 Terran versus Protoss. So even though Jabroni is on the opposing team, I'm going to have to cheer for him. And speaking of this legendary creature, spawning in the... Whoa. My hotkey's not working. Awesome. Spawning in the bottom left position with the blue eyeshadow, playing for the University of Texas Arlington, we have... Oh, failed. Area Jabroni.
Yeah. And spawning up in the top right-hand position, representing Purdue University, we have our red Protoss player spawning in, of course, red. What else? Makomi.
Oh, so spiffy. So, from the Protoss perspective, what do you think we're going to see out of Makomi this game?
You know, I wouldn't be too surprised if he was either... Well, usually in Protoss versus Terran, you generally want to go down either one of 2 tech paths. You want to go down the Templar tech, or you want to go down the robotics tech path. And on this map in particular, just in terms of general openings, we're likely to see a much more expansion-driven play style. You usually want to go for something like a one-gate expand on this map, just because it's so easy to hold the natural with that ramp right there to force field off, or at least for the Protoss player. Now, what do you think the Terran player might have in mind in this game?
Again, with Shakur's Plateau, I do not think he's going to do any highly aggressive plays like a 2-Rax, and we can already see that Jabroni is walling off at the front and has not gotten a gas even though he's at 15 supply, which would imply to me that he is doing a gasless expansion. So he should be getting his command center around the 330 mark if his timings are well down.
Yeah, and Makomi, of course, scouting that there was no gas. That's going to be a big tell to say, look, there's either going to be a huge Marine pressure incoming, or it's going to be that gasless expand that you were talking about. And Makomi is probably going to gear up to probably actually take his own expansion in just a little bit after his Cybernetics core probably finishes up.
He has started it. The Cybernetics core is about 50% completed now, so we'll see very shortly if Makomi wants to do any harassment, very aggressive play, or just to take that expansion, which we've talked about before. His probe was chased out before he did get vision of that command center being thrown down. I'm just showing everyone else that. So let's see what decision Makomi actually comes to. It looks like he's starting up his first Stalker and Cybernetics core, but this probe seems to be going down to plant this Nexus.
Yeah, and he is saving up that money. We can see he's about 350 minerals now, and just waiting to plant down that Nexus. Looks like he's actually queuing up another Stalker.
Yes, he queued up his second Stalker.
Yeah, so he has another Stalker on the way. So that makes me think that he's going to put on a little bit of aggression. We can even see that he does have that Xel'Naga watchtower with that probe, so he can maybe get out a little bit of vision, see if there are any Marines coming out. Because I don't think he's seen that expansion yet, so he wants to be extra careful to make sure that those massive Marine numbers are not coming out from that gasless build.
Oh, and Jabroni's actually doing one of the strategies I used for a long time is after a gasless expansion to get 3 additional barracks, still delaying this gas. So we're going to see a very heavy Marine opening. This build is also very effective versus Void Ray openings, which Makomi has used in PvTs in previous CSL matches.
There was a money SCV walking straight into Makomi's base, and it sees everything.
Yep,
and I do mean everything.
He knew he knows that the Nexus went down. He saw the 2 additional gateways, and he knows that no units are in his base. So he should have a good idea that either some Zealots or Stalkers are out on the field.
Yeah, and he's probably going to be
from the Protoss perspective. If you just got scouted like that, would you change your game plan at all, or would you just continue on with what you were going with?
You know, I would probably say it's safer to continue on with what I'm going with. As of right now, tech paths such as I was talking about, the Templar tech versus the robotics tech, that kind of stuff has not been revealed yet. And, you know, the Terran usually wants to respond by getting either Ghosts or Vikings, depending on which one the Protoss goes for.
Oh, we lost one Stalker. Some of these Marines were moving out and was able to pick off a Stalker, and the Stalker is seeing all these Marines, so Makomi should know that there are a few barracks out on the field.
Yeah, and that Stalker is going to be able to get some good damage on those Marines. For those who don't know, a Stalker actually has 1 extra range over a Marine, so it has 6 range, and it moves a little bit faster. So that means that if you have really solid control, as both of these players definitely do, you can kind of jump your Stalker around and try and pick off some little bits of damage on those Marines, and then your shields will just come back and recharge.
Oh, but this is a big, scary force that are moving around. 15 Marines. This is enough to do some damage as it's hitting before, or it should hit before the 8-minute mark, and that's when Protoss, if they're teching up, that's when they start having their first couple of mortals, but before Colossus pumps out. So if Makomi has enough sentries to hold this off, which we'll look at the front. He does have 4, but it will take 2 force fields to wall this off completely. So Makomi has to be paying big attention to this. But it looks like these Marines will not commit. They may try to... Oh no, they turn around. But it looks like these 3 Stalkers are enough to chase him out.
These Stalkers are actually going to do a huge amount of damage as these Marines try and walk back. And actually, no, it looks like the Stalkers are going to head back. They're going to try and play it safe. Maybe McComey doesn't want to take the chance of losing these 3 Stalkers, as that's actually a pretty big loss if you end up losing those this early into the game.
Yeah, and Jabroni is actually making a second bunker after being thrown back. The stim is about halfway done, so he is getting stim before combat shield, and is even getting concussive shells as he's making 2 Marauders at a time and 4 Marines. He's going for getting ready to do a big push, and this reactor on the factory is going to enable him to get very fast drop shifts to do this play. So we are going to see a very strong 2-base timing, and McComey is actually getting ready to take a third. Usually he will
it looks
drop
like at the same time. Yeah, at the exact same time as McComey's trying to take a third. Looks like Jabroni is also dropping down his 3rd command center, and this observer over in Jabroni's base does spot that. So McComey's going to feel a little bit safer about taking that third, as he does end up dropping that down and planting that other pylon right next to it to make sure that he can reinforce and defend it as he needs to.
Exactly.
And I really like this play from McComey. He actually has 2 observers. So one he's positioning right outside of Jabroni's front so that he can spot to see when Jabroni does decide to move out. And the other one is inside Jabroni's base. And, you know, the great thing I like about this is that a lot of Terrans will see the observer moving out and they'll scan and kill off the observer. And once you lose your observer, you kind of are in the dark for a little while. So McComey is kind of prepared in advance and said, hey, I'm just going to make 2 observers because there's 2 places on the map I want to look at.
And we even have a 3rd observer that just came out, so he is going to even spend a little more time. And McComey does spot this giant force with 2 dropships, stim, and +1 should finish before it hits. So this is a very scary army in which force fields are very needed to hold this off.
Oh, this is actually going to be very down to the micro on if McComey can hold this. And he's actually moved down his ramp, and I'm not sure how much I agree with that with this Zealot Sentry Force. His Stalkers are not even actually there to really help out. Ooh, the Stalker's taking a little bit of damage from the Marauders on the high ground. Oh, actually losing 2 of them.
And then they come running off. Force fields are late. A big chunk of the army is sectioned off, and those Zealots are getting to work, but I don't know if McComey has enough. Only sentries remain, and now 2 sentries. 1 sentry was only dropped. Now we're going to start elevatoring up into the main base and start splitting up this Protoss army, which seems very fragile right now.
Oh, that's such a beautiful play from Jabroni. Jabroni knowing that McComey was dependent on using force fields to delay this push, so he instead just drops straight into the main, forces McComey to split up his units. McComey desperately running out of force fields. Now the main army can move up. There's no more force fields left. There's only 1 sentry with 1 force field left, and the probes are coming out. The probes all getting massacred as these Marines and Marauders just do way too much damage. They stim once again and clean up the entire army of McComey, and McComey is in big trouble, Curtis.
Yeah, and during all of this, McComey's minerals have just been skyrocketing up. It seems like he was trying something and just got hit before he was ready for it. And I mean, that's actually going to cause game 1 in favor of University of Arlington. So taking that very fast third and teching up at the same time, it looks like he was going for Archon-based play, as we saw 1 Archon being made at the end of the game. But it looks like he just did not have enough gateways. What do you think was a mistake that McComey did in this game?
You know, I would say that McComey was doing pretty well, but he just was really underprepared for that big pressure push that Jabroni ended up doing with those Marines and Marauders. McComey was a little bit low on actual army. He had a really good sentry count, so he could do those force fields, and he did pretty decent force fields. I think he actually cut up a little. He let a little bit too much up his ramp, but even still, I think he probably wanted to have a little bit bigger of an army. He didn't have any High Templar or Colossus to really help out with the big battle. So that, I would say, that was probably the biggest error that ended up happening in McComey's play.
Yeah, I feel that he just left, as you said it, too many of the Marines and Marauders up his ramp before he force fielded them off. I don't know if that was intentional or not. Usually he has a lot more Zealots, by that time, so and looking at his mineral count at the end of the battle, I'm wondering if he just missed warp-ins when he was trying to micro a little bit more. And also from the Terran perspective, at one point, even though he lost 2 Stalkers on the high ground because the Terran had vision, Makomi was unable to pick off a dropship and or a medevac, wrong game. And being able to pick off those medevacs is just really pivotal, because then the longer that the battle goes on, it should favor Protoss, because the more and more the Terran army stims, that's more and more life that's being drained that cannot be regenerated until more medevacs come across the field. So that was just a small thing. I don't think that's the reason he lost that engagement. I think he was just doing too much. He was getting that third, he was teching up to High Templar all at the same time while cutting just his normal gateway units.
Yeah, I think just touching on one of the things you just mentioned, like he was teching up to High Templar, I think Jabroni actually just had a fabulous timing on when he ended up pushing. He hit Makomi before he actually had the opportunity to even morph in not just High Templar, but any Archons. Any splash damage really helps against those medevacs and that bio force. And yeah, I think just Makomi's lack of those tech options that he invested so much into that that third expansion that really hadn't had time to pay off yet. He invested into the High Templar tech, which really didn't have time to pay off yet. He didn't have any of those units for the engagement, and just investing in all those different locations without really having the payout return from them really hurt him in that game.
He was heavily invested in the late game. But let's move on to our next match to talk about those statistics before this game starts off. And we do have Bob Move playing for Purdue as our Zerg hero, and he'll be going against Ultrim, who is playing as Protoss, if I remember.
Yeah, he is they're in fact both Masters level players. Bob Moo a Zerg and Ultrim a Protoss player. Now, we don't actually have that many statistics for Ultrim in this from the Collegiate Star League. We only have one game, which was a PBT, and that was a loss for Ultrim. And he was also involved in Ultrim was also involved in a 2 versus 2, but that also turned out to be a loss. So, you know, maybe not the best gauge of statistics. There's only 2 games, and neither really in the matchup that we're talking about. But we do have a bit more statistics for Bob Moo for Purdue University. Although I will admit that most of those statistics are in fact for 2v2 games. Yes. Bob Moo usually does play the 2v2. But we do have him as a 1-0 in ZVP. So that's, you know, looking a little bit good for him. But again, it's only one game, so we're really going to have to find out to see what that actually means for Bob Moo.
Right, and it was on a different map. Can't actually read it on my screen. It looks like Shakira's Plateau from this angle, but I could be wrong. I have it struck down because I have a lot of information over here, so I'm sorry.
No problem. But the map that they're going to play on is actually going to be MLG Dual Site. And MLG Dual Site is really interesting for Zerg versus Protoss in that, surprisingly, according to Liquipedia, there have been over or close to 1,000 games played on it, and it's a 52.5% win ratio for Zerg. So that's really close to 50%. It's surprisingly
overall.
In this matchup. So about 501 games won for Zerg and about 454 games won for Protoss. That's, you know, 52%. That's really close to 50%. So I think we might be able to see a really even game here, depending on how these players end up playing it out.
And those are some statistics that we can look at. Unfortunately, we don't have the player statistics to try to loop that up to say that this is his favorite matchup. I do know pre-game, talking to Bob Moo, before we even submitted our lineup, the one matchup he did not want to see was a ZVP. And before going into too much details, he's very afraid of one strategy, but I'm not going to say what that strategy is just yet. And hopefully we will not see that. And
quick! Write down the strategy. Write down the strategy.
Write it down, and then the game's like, see, I said it. No, and just to throw it out there, it's not cannon rushing. He's not afraid of being cannon rushed. At this point, I think most Zergs know how to hold any of that shenanigan off, unless they just completely overthink the matchup. I do remember at MLG Ohio, while watching EG's JYP, it is EG, right?
Yes.
Yes.
He is in fact on EG despite all the mess ups that Dan and I might have about what was it, Huck? Huck not being on EG, it's Liquid Huck still.
Yes, and it's not
quite. JYP is in fact on EG.
But JYP was playing against a Zerg player, and he ended up doing a cannon rush. And the Zerg player's face when he realized he was getting cannon rush, he just did not think JYP would cannon rush him at all, and just immediately left the game. So the game lasted about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Something really obscene like that. And the Zerg player, I mean, he saw it, and you heard this big and then he just shifted back, because he just overthought it. But I don't think that's going to happen with Babu, since Babu is a little bit more veteran. And in CSL, statistically speaking, even looking at Wikipedia, players like to do a lot of cheeses, because it is a best of one, so all you need to do is trick them once and you get the win.
Yeah, and you really can't underestimate how important the value of cheese is. Cheese is actually I think it has a very important place in StarCraft 2, because on the other hand of the other side of cheese, where you have a lot of aggression very early on, you have the other side of cheese, which is a lot of economic cheese, which I like to call, where people are taking very unsafe expansions, maybe hiding them, doing all kinds of very unsafe stuff, maybe teching a lot faster than they really should. So cheese is really important. That keeps you honest. So, I actually wouldn't mind too much if we ended up seeing a cheese. And hey, I'm just saying, sometimes cheese can result in some pretty hilarious games.
Yeah, and we'll probably see that, not to get too ahead of ourselves, but we'll probably see the most cheese variations in the 2 versus 2, as the amount of insane combos that are in that format is just really entertaining. For example, I'll wait till that to get later before we do some 2v2 breakdowns. Essentially, we discussed everything that's going to happen in this match. We're just waiting on the few players. It looks like we will be having the Bamu game. It looks like he was just grabbing some water really quick. So we're just waiting for that game to be made, and then we'll go underway.
And, water, oh so important. I think one time I actually had, during one of the Collegiate Star League casts, I actually even went on further from the water. You want to make sure you have water with you when you actually decide to play. But personally, I like to make sure that my bladder is also clear. That's something that whenever I play, I have to make sure I go to the bathroom beforehand. So a lot of players will have these little small things. I know actually there's even some Korean player. I cannot place his name in my head right now, but he plays with a towel over his hand. So players, Gumiho, yeah, Gumiho, FXO Gumiho?
I believe he plays for FXO, yeah.
Yeah, FXO. But a lot of players will have these small little things that they like to do and make sure everything is perfect before they play. Sometimes it's just a little bit of a psychological thing, but everything helps. And water, I can definitely appreciate that one.
Yeah, and just to talk about some of the psychological things, I disagree with you with using the restroom beforehand. There's been some scientific studies that actually say that you can actually focus better if you have to pee, because you just want to, because you're not distracted by any other outside force other than having to pee and then what you're focusing on. I know a lot of people disagree with that and all that stuff. Join the game. Either select me or Babu. But what I personally need to do, I need to play hungry. So as soon as I start a tournament, I don't eat until I'm done. But I drink water constantly. But that's just how I operate. I've been to so many different tournaments since I've been just a wee little boy. So I know what works for me. So if going to the bathroom and drink a lot of water and eating, even during the game, helps you, go at it. They're just different techniques of getting ready. And that's why the CSL is so useful, because you can play in your own room, your own environment, rather than going to an MLG event when you're playing, maybe using your same keyboard and mouse, but you're using different video settings, a different monitor. You're surrounded by people that are either cheering you on or cheering against you, and those are huge psychological factors. So in the CSL, it's friendly in that aspect that it's not just bombarded by an overload of information. You're not being matched up on the main stage in front of how many people were at MLG? Like 2,000.
Oh, definitely some thousand number of people, and I completely agree.
It was just huge. And then not only that, but if you're being broadcasted, the amount of thousands of people that subscribe to MLG's thing was just insane. And that pressure just really loads on people, especially if you're fresh to playing in kind of a tournament setting. So it looks like we are getting ready to go underway. We didn't look at the map itself, but that's fine. We didn't do that the first game. And the countdown has begun.
Indeed, and you know, I don't actually mind that we haven't looked at the map, because that means we get to tour the entire map all over again. And you know what my favorite part about this map is? And by favorite part, I mean least favorite part. It's the waterfall. The loudest waterfall on Earth. In fact, I can actually say this as a fact. I've been to a waterfall, and I've stood right almost like underneath it, and it's not as loud as the waterfall in this game when you have your headphones on.
I don't know, man.
It's the most distracting thing. I've lost games to Nidus worms because I was staring at my natural expansion next to the waterfall.
I don't know. I've been to Niagara Falls,
we'll show you about that.
That's really loud. In that horseshoe ravine, I mean, that's really loud of just being pelted by. I mean, it's water, but it just feels so heavy when it smacks you around. So, but
I feel like it should do damage to units that walk underneath or like walk near it.
If you have energy, your energy gets absorbed, a lot like electricity and water. Yeah, I think that'll really balance out infestors.
Oh man, this is going to become StarCraft meets Pokemon.
Well, I mean,
now in the next expansion, we're going to have like different types of Zerglings. We're going to have a Fire Zergling.
Well, if you remember in the campaign, there were a few of the Terran missions in which the lava would flow up. Instead, they're just going to have water come up, and all the energy units that are in the water just get absorbed. But enough about that. We're going to start this game off. Spawning in the 3 o'clock position, we have the pink eyeshadowed Protoss, Ultrim, playing for the University of Texas, Arlington.
Woo! And spawning over in the bottom left position, we're going to have the green Zerg, representing Purdue University, and his name is going to be Bob Moo.
Oh, it didn't zoom in. How did I screw this up again? There it is.
It's actually surprisingly hard to do that, so I don't blame you too much.
Oh, I don't think I had the names up here before, but it hasn't been a mirror match, so it shouldn't have been too difficult. Let's throw up the mini-map view, which is oh so much fun. And it looks like we do have a very fast Probe Scout on 9.
Yeah, and that Probe Scout is so much fun to do when you're a Protoss player because you get to do all kinds of super annoying things. Not only do you get to scout for a 6 pool, which, don't get me wrong, is always fun to see, but you also get to block the natural expansion of the Zerg player, and just causing that pain to a Zerg player is one of my few favorite things in the world.
Well, that's really interesting. Bamu sent out this drone on 12, but he's using it to scout, and this probe originally thought that he was going to take this expansion, but Bamu does drop the spawning pool on, I think it was 14. So that's very interesting. Bamu does favor spawning pool first openings. He just feels a lot more comfortable. I know usually in this matchup particularly that going hatch first is much more popular. But there are some players like July that still likes to do spawning pool first, and Bamu has that same mindset, I think, when he looks at this matchup. It's very traditional.
And yeah, we actually do see that pylon going down from Ultrim, and that's going to, again, block the natural expansion of Bamu from going down until he gets those Zerglings out. So just delaying Bamu from really getting out that economic advantage, forcing him to make Zerglings that he probably doesn't want to make. He'd rather be making a lot more drones.
Oh no, Bamu forgot an Overlord, so he's going to get these supply blocks. He does do an extractor trick, but he has forgotten that Overlord. I'm wondering if his build needed him to sacrifice this drone to not get supply blocked, or if he just forgot it under that pressure which we talked about. And we have a lot of energy being stored up on this Nexus. Are you kidding me? Tell me about this PVZ build of having this much energy and 2 gas.
Well, this is actually a little bit interesting. We might be seeing a huge amount of sentry pressure. You know, the last time I've seen a build that looked like this was back when OGSMC, who's now SKMC, played against Startail July in one of the GSL finals, and he just made a lot of sentries. I think 5 gateways, made a Nexus, canceled the Nexus, and then did a huge push. And it was very hard to scout for. So I don't know if we'll be seeing that out of Ultram, as he was chrono boosting out both a Stalker and a Zealot, and now it looks like he's going to try and put on a little bit of pressure with the Stalker, but not using that chrono boost on your probes.
But he has been getting supply blocked and lost some of that chrono boost because of it. So both these players are feeling that pressure of the CSL. I mean, Ultron has a lot to prove following his compatriot who got the first win, and Bamu has a lot to prove to say that, hey, Purdue's still in this, you know, don't take us too lightly.
And we do see one gateway going down. Can we get a second gateway? No, it actually looks like he's gonna Ultram's gonna put a pylon on the low ground if this probe can never get past the Zealot.
Having a little technical difficulties. That's really weird. He tried to mineral walk it. Oh no, did he just miss it?
I think he just barely missed that. Oh no, and this is
this is the money Zergling. Yeah, are you gonna yell at me for that big win?
Yeah, that probe definitely needs its AI written, as it was having quite a bit of issues navigating around things.
Yeah.
So that's actually a really annoying thing, and especially as we were talking about, the pressure does get to these players in this like very competitive tournament environment. So, you know, having even a small thing like that, losing that probe that you really didn't want to lose.
Hold that thought. We do have 19 Zerglings right outside the the Protoss' base, and a few poke in. They say, "Hey, I can take this." There's no sentries there. A few Zerglings actually stop the ramp, but that is a really good placement. A cancel on the Nexus goes down, and Bamu says, "Haha, I made you cancel."
You know, I've played a lot of games with Bamu, and he definitely does love this style of making a lot of Zerglings very early on against a Protoss player who does try to go for those gateway expand style. And he says, you know what, if you want to try and make an expansion after going for gateways, I'm just going to make a bunch of Zerglings, and if you don't cancel it, I'm going to kill off all of your sentries, because if you mess up even just a little bit, you're going to lose the game. So, I mean, props to Ultram for getting that very clutch block on the ramp, but he's going to have to be very careful against these Zerglings. He will have those sentries to force field if he needs to, but he really doesn't want to be using that force field energy on, you know, saving these, or sorry, stopping the Zerglings from killing off this expansion again. He wants to save that energy for when he does decide to put on a little bit of pressure.
Yeah, and it looks like Bamu is taking a little defensive stance, which I think is a little, almost too much, in my opinion. He threw down 2 spines and a spore crawler after he scouted the 3 stalkers and 1 zealot. I know he may have been a little bit afraid of either a Voidor push or a Dark Templar play on one base, but just based on what he scouted with the Lings, I don't think that was the proper response. I would have much rather him see either getting a tech or taking a third very quickly, but I do see he's getting the lair, and it looks like he will be transitioning to Roach, as missile attacks are now 50% complete.
Oh, poor Bamu. Actually, this Overlord is just going to barely miss that Twilight Council as he tries to go in, and the Stalkers eventually end up picking it off. So he's going to completely miss the fact that Blink is almost done researching. So looks like it's going to be a big Blink Stalker play, but you know, he might have a second chance if he does manage to see the high Stalker count.
And right now we have 13 Zerglings to the 5 Stalkers and 1 Zealot, and we'll just get a gateway count really quick. We have 3, 4, and it looks like 3 more, so we're going up to a 7 gate 2 base push of Blink Stalkers. So Bamu has to be ready, so these spines will be a huge help, but what Bamu really needs is to start pumping out these roaches, and we do have our first wave. It looks like only just a few of them, 7 are out right now, but we're going to need a lot more to hold off this heavy aggressive +1 Blink timing.
And Bamu getting that Galilial reconstitution that does make your roaches move just a little bit faster. A very important upgrade, especially against those Protoss force fields. You want to be able to nuzzle up against the Protoss army to really be effective and pick off all those sentries, and make sure that the Stalkers who are blinking back do not get quite as far away as they might like, and they not really giving them the chance to recharge those shields.
But
the Stalkers are going to move out
from the watchtower, so Bamu knows something's up. It looks like they're beelining straight for the third, but unfortunately the third just finished, but there's no drones here, so it's going to be a small loss for Bob, and Bob should just probably let this die rather than getting choked at this really awkward point and having these sentries just wall it off. We do have more roaches underway. Oh, a bunch of roaches underway. 7 more being complete. So it looks like the Spartan Lava just kicked in. And it looks like Ultram is committing to this. Bamu does have a 40 supply lead, so it is going to come down to a little bit of more. Oh! The force fields are a big whiff.
Oh, really? Not the greatest force fields, exactly as you were saying. Whiffed kind of a lot, and actually delaying the push from Ultram a little bit, giving Bamu the time to nuzzle up against this army. Oh my god, he has a great surround, and all the Stalkers blink back, but it doesn't matter. The Roach is going to pick off all the sentries, and oh wow,
that is
these
a
Stalkers
huge
are
win.
just
Bamu now has still a
boned.
40 supply lead. All these Stalkers now have 0 sentry support, and that's what you really need versus a Roach Stalker army. And actually, it looks like +2 is going to kick in a little bit for the Protoss player because of the Chrono Boost, but these Roaches are snuggling up, just as you said, and there's no force fields to keep them away. And the longer this goes on, Bamu should have the lead here.
Yeah, I have to say, if you go to the unit counting station, we can actually see Bamu's up at about 48 drones to 31 probes. So, you know, all Bamu has to do is focus on pushing this back, and he's doing a wonderful job of doing that. He has a lot more roaches than there are Stalkers, and I mean a lot more. And these Stalkers are going to get away with the use of that blink. But, you know, Ultram is going to have to make something happen, as Bamu actually has already retaken a third, which is already up, and soon we'll have drones at it.
Yes, and Bamu does scout with one of his patrolling Zerglings, which was preventing this base from getting done. And Bamu does have a Zergling here to prevent this. I would really like to see burrow upgrade happen for him to be able to not only burrow these roaches to accumulate health a lot quicker, but also to start burrowing Zerglings at each of the bases, so to force Ultram to get that robotics baiting, to get observers, to be able to take a third, and that can be really annoying, especially when Bamu knows that he's gone Blink Stalker to base timing. I'm really surprised Bamu hasn't been scouting for a proxy pylon, as he kept seeing more and more Stalkers get reinforced from this area. So that I do think is a little curious, but I think he just has a few other things on his mind. Almost with a 60 supply lead right now, and all these overlords are now just snuggling up on this extractor.
Yeah, and actually Bamu has already started that pathogen glands at his infestation pit. So I would be expecting some infestors to be popping pretty soon. Usually you want to start that pathogen gland.
And Ultram is approaching. We only have 2 sentries with this army. Bamu wasn't paying attention, but is able to break in. Those sentries do absolutely nothing with his force fields, and Bamu should be able to crush this Stalker army right here and now.
I don't know about that. No. I think there's quite a few Stalkers left over, and with use of Blink Micro, he might be able to do a little bit more damage, but no, actually it looks like Bamu able to push that back.
Yeah, and the biggest thing right now, we do have +2 and +2 for both players, but Bamu almost has the armor upgrade.
Ooh, some Zealot harassment at the 4th base of Bamu, the old 3rd base.
Yes, and I have that right now on camera. One little Zergling is picking off one of the Zerglings, and if these roaches scuttle their little hearts out, they will be able to save it, as they're now one-shotting these Zealots, and it looks like we're going to have...
I meant there was a Zealot harass at Bamu's base, and, you know, they target fired down the hatchery, weren't quite able to get it. Yep. Still 375 health left on that.
Exactly. A lot of Chrono Boost is still being saved up. It looks like Ultram doesn't know exactly what to spend it on, and now we almost have a, what is that, about an 80 supply lead, almost 90 supply lead for Bamu. So Bamu is going to start doing very aggressive plays, and we, of course, there we have it, the Dark Shrine. Where did he throw it down? Right there.
It's underneath his natural assimilator, and you know the Dark Shrine, very, very great tool for every Protoss, especially when you're in a bind. I have to say, whenever I'm losing a game, I throw down a Dark Shrine and just magical things can happen. So we'll have to see if Ultram can make those magical things happen. And
but we have 4 Infestors, and he's going to be able to pick off this third base with almost no problem. And with Fungals being able to be thrown down, there is no such thing as Blink Micro. But it looks like there is no engagement just yet. And now we have, it was a 100 supply lead at one point, but it looks like a warping came in. And now Immortals are coming out on the field from the 1 Robotics Bay, which is also at his natural. All his tech structures of Ultram are at his natural, which is very curious.
Yeah, one thing I have to say about Ultram's play right now is that I'm very surprised he doesn't have, actually hold that thought, there's an engagement going on in a lot of force fields, actually pretty good force fields that are blocking off a lot of these roaches from coming in, but it doesn't matter, there's too many roaches and they managed to walk around the force fields. The fungal growth stopped the stalkers from actually blinking away, and it looks like Babu's going to march straight in.
Oh!
There are...
the DTs all get fungled by 1 fungal growth, and then that is that. Oh, wow, that was just a money. It was just like, wait, did I just hear a DT smack my roach? Fungal, and then that was it. And Bamu seemed to have a huge control of that game, nearly from start to finish, with that early Zergling pressure of getting the Nexus after Gateway. And then Bamu was able to get enough roaches to hold off that 2-base timing push. And as I said before game, the one thing Bamu was afraid of from Protoss was a 2-base push. So even though he went up against what his most feared build was, he was able to overcome in flying colors.
Yeah, I think Bamu really did a great job of holding off that aggression for the Blink Stalker push. As we could see, he actually played it really smart. As you were saying, a lot of maybe like platinum level Zergs and diamond level Zergs would have seen, oh, there's a huge army coming into my third. I need to A-move all of my roaches and defend it. But Babu was being very calm and collected and said, you know, no, I'm going to just let that expansion die, and after that, I'm going to wait till he decides to come up to my natural, where I can really do a great job of using that creep advantage to get my roaches in to nuzzle those sentries and pick them off. So, I mean, really good play from Babu, and, you know, nice play from Altism. I keep saying Altrism. Ultram. Nice play from Ultram as well. Doing some pretty good blink micro, getting out of some really icky situations as well.
Those icky situations. I hate icky situations.
Icky situations.
One of, like, other than talking about the armies clashing, I think, as we talked about the first game of why any bigger major points why he lost, it looked like Ultram's biggest flaw is he kept getting supply blocked over and over and over again, and just that gave Bamu the chance to then get that huge supply lead. Because even though Bamu got supply blocked once early game, I didn't notice him getting supply blocked at all for the rest of the game. And as we pointed out, that one probe that tried to get past that Zealot, but that was the one meanest bouncer of saying, I need to see your badge, man. You can't go down and build that pylon. And even when the probe went down there, he was picked off by one Zergling, which that Zealot could have helped out on. And so there was just a huge time in which the Protoss player was supply blocked, and in his mind he queued up to build a pylon, but wasn't aware that it never got started. And that, I think, was the downfall, as we saw it later and later, as the game went later and later.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, just on that, so just getting supply blocked, a lot of times you'll think, oh, it's not that bad if I just get supply blocked. It only kind of sets my build back just a little bit. But it kind of goes as a domino effect. It sets everything back, especially if it happens very early on. It'll set back, for example, the big Blink Stalker push that Ultram tried to do. And, you know, that kind of gave Babu time to get out the huge roach count that he really needed to try and hold off that big aggression. So I definitely agree. Getting supply blocked, very, very harmful in, you know, the build that Ultram was doing.
Yeah, and I was also very impressed by both players that they were able to get their +1 upgrades nearly at the exact same time. They stayed neck and neck throughout that entire game, even though Babu decided to get the +1 armor after +2 range. But that also, because it's a cheaper upgrade, enabled him to go Infestor tech as well. So when he did get that third saturation, he pumped out the Infestors to support in his Roach army, and I think that was just a very good decision rather than going straight for a +3 weapons attack, which Ultram decided to go for. And I mean, that is a huge gas intake, and especially for Protoss, a lot of the tech structures obviously are gas orientated, and even the units. He started making Dark Templar, which is 125 gas per Dark Templar, and that is a huge commitment of gas. I think we also saw a Templar Archives for High Templar, but he didn't make a single High Templar, so I don't know if that was a mistake, or he just got so much pressure that he decided that he could not make High Templar at that point.
Well, generally, I think in late game Protoss, for whatever matchup, including PvP, PvZ, PvT, Protoss generally want to get that big area of effect damage dealing unit, such as the High Templar or the Colossus. And, you know, he did have those Immortals, which do fabulous against Roaches. And he also was getting that Dark Templar type, but he really didn't have that area of effect damaging unit. And I think that might have actually gotten to him. He might have thought, you know what, I really should be teching towards something that will help me deal with these big Roach armies or these big armies in general. But, you know, I think I completely agree. I think not having the, you know, proper number of bases and the proper economy to really support the gas that it would cost to be producing Immortals, Dark Templar, and High Templar. I think that was the mistake, and definitely I completely agree.
Well, I think we talked about that good enough. We're going to now talk about our next game, which is, at first when I started casting these games, was my least favorite format to cast. But now, more and more that I cast 2s, they're just fun, because they just have so many different variations of playing standard in 2s with the different race combinations. And then you can also do just massive cheeses. And our matchups... I'm sorry. This is why I shouldn't read chat when I'm on air. So I'm just going to bypass that. But I really like 2s because there's just so much validity, I guess. It's just so different. Every game is different. Even though that there's common strategies to have. I'm not reading, so guys, stop talking to me. There's just so many different builds. And right now we do have Jabberwock, who's playing as Terran and LaBouffe. So TVPs have a lot of interesting pushes, either early game where the Terran player goes Mass Marauder and the Protoss player can either do a 4-gate, or they can both do this extremely scary 2-base push with Hellions, tanks, Stalkers, and then even some Colossus if they're going for that later game push, and that is just scary to go up against. And they're going up against a Zerg and a Protoss, is that correct?
Yeah, that does look like it's going to be a Zerg Protoss versus a Zerg, Zerg Protoss versus a Zerg Terran. So not actually going to be a mirror matchup, which is kind of funny because I think that the last 4 or 5 games that we've actually ended up casting was not, or they were all mirror matchups, I think.
What's really scary in a Terran, I'm just going to change the screens really quick to verify. Yeah, it's a Terran Protoss and Protoss Zerg. So the Protoss Zerg variations, what's extremely popular is for the Overlord to grant vision for a 4-gate. And that can be really scary, especially if it's a map that shares a common exit point. So like that's really easy to wall off because then you're extremely vulnerable at the back of your bases. So for Team Purdue, knowing that race matchup, the Terran player of Jabberwock needs to have very active Marines looking for any Overlords that can be around or any proxy pylons. And same thing with that first Stalker that comes out. Even though they want some units to be at the front of their bases, they need to be patrolling and looking for any of that shenanigans. And then also later game pushes that can happen is you can do a Baneling Stalker push or a 4-gate early game, or you can wait later on and start doing really nasty things with fungal growths, storms, and just so much shenanigans. So this should be a very interesting kind of match to go up against, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and actually touching on one of the things that you were just talking about, which was that kind of 4-gate with Overlord aggression, and that's actually something that Purdue University players, the 2v2 team, has actually lost to, I think, 1 or 2 times in the past. So I think that will definitely be something that they'll be considering while they're playing. They're probably going to have that fresh in their minds from the last time that it did happen.
Yes.
So
I don't think that happened with. I think that was with Doom and LeBouf. I think that was the combo that it was last happening against. Because the statistics of Jabberwock. Oh, I don't have that up there because it didn't fit.
Oh, I do actually. I do have statistics
Jabberwock
for these players.
and LeBouf, when they've played together, they always win. I mean, they've only played, I think, 2 games, maybe even 1 game together, but it is definitely something to take in consideration. Jabberwock, I think, is kind of our team lead with our 2s, as he really likes that format, and he's a random player, so he knows not only how to play the race he's playing right now, which is Terran, but he knows what every race is thinking of, especially with that combination of 2s. So he just has a vast knowledge which he's going to share with LeBouf to be able to scout information and then adapt to it quickly. And I really hope that Purdue can continue this train of winning game after game.
And actually, just talking about both Jabberwock and LeBouf, we do have some statistics on how they're doing in their 2 versus 2 games, and we can actually see that Jabberwock is 4-2 in the 2v2 for Purdue University this season. So he's doing pretty well. He's probably going to be pretty happy about his record. And LeBouf himself has actually been playing quite a bit of 2v2 for Purdue University, and he's actually 3-0. So he's definitely going to be feeling pretty good. Now, I think we don't actually have that many statistics for the 2v2 players for the other team.
University of Texas Arlington. Just looking at the previous history, it seems like they play a much more broader player base, rather than Purdue's philosophy has a set of 7 players in which they rotate just based on availability. So there are a lot more statistics for Purdue because of that reason, rather than the University of Texas Arlington, which they have a lot, I guess, bigger team, and so they make sure that everyone has a chance to participate in the CSL.
Yeah, and of course both philosophies have their merits. So if you have like a lot of people that are allowed to play, obviously a lot of people will be a lot happier about it. You'll get a much larger representation, but on the other hand, you always have to be careful to make sure that you end up not sacrificing some matches if you're fielding maybe someone that you might consider slightly less skilled. But I think I really do like both of these teams' philosophies, and we're going to have to see how they end up playing out. I actually could not find any map statistics for Scorched Haven. Go figure, it's actually not played that much, because 2v2 isn't played that much in, a lot of the things that Team Liquid keeps track of. But I do have that Purdue University does have a 3-0 record on this map, so hey, there's that. And of course,
wasn't there this one player who was playing his primary race at the time to end up getting a win?
Yeah. What was that player's name?
He's so legendary. It's just like in baseball or football when you retire a jersey number. That's what we do, and we can't even talk about him. He's just that good of legendary status. But with that, we're going to jump into Game 3, which is our 2v2 playing on Scorched Haven.
Woo! Yeah, And
so,
why don't you go ahead and introduce the players?
Yes, and spawning in the left side of the map, first we have the Red Zerg, Finchy, fighting for the University of Texas Arlington, and his partner for the game, which is Neurosis, as the Purple Eyeshadow Protoss. And then our heroes of this casting, because I believe in biases.
We have in the top right-hand corner LeBouf as the yellow Protoss, and his ally, in just below him, Jabberwock, the blue Terran, neither with creep.
Yes, we have no creepers here in the Purdue, even though that Bamu just played for us, but let's forget that. Oh yes, we can have the names up there. And we do have a very fast scout from LeBouf, and it looks like there will be, a scout from Neurosis right now, but just a little bit delayed. LeBouf sent out his probe right as soon as he finished his pylon, and Neurosis seemed to high-five LeBouf after going back to mine, it looks like, for 5 extra gas.
And the high five, oh so important for sportsmanship. It's so good to see the players being very sportsmanlike in these games where they're out to kill each other.
Oh, of course. But that's just...
Oh, and actually, interesting thing, Neurosis actually going for the wall off. As we can see, the pylon was planted at his ramp, and now planting the gateway down, as opposed to, say, LeBouf, who was planting all of his buildings over by his nexus. So, kind of interesting decision, especially against a Zerg player, Finchy, who could potentially go for those Zergling run-bys.
And LeBouf has scouted that there is no spawning pool. It was just thrown down, so LeBouf and Jabberwock should know that there is an expansion, and LeBouf is going to verify this information right now. So let's see what judgment call that Team Purdue decides to change with that information. LeBouf still continues to get this little wall off, but I highly doubt we're going to see any early Ling aggression anytime soon.
Yeah, and we do actually see LeBouf trying to be as annoying as possible, forcing that Cybernetics core to actually go down at Neurosis' base a little bit above of where probably the wall off would have been. Not a huge impact, but you know, every little bit of annoyance definitely counts. As we did talk in the last game about that mental factor for these players playing in this high stakes, high competition setting.
Okay, and it looks like we do have both the Gateway and Cybernetics Core being chrono boosted simultaneously. So it looks like we are going to have very early pressure from that Stalker. And the Cybernetics Core from Neurosis is a little delayed, and let's see exactly what Neurosis decides to do with this.
Bunker going down over at Finchy's base from Jabberwock, and this SCV is being very annoying, actually trying to hide between the Vespian Geyser, and he's actually going to get into a pretty nice position where only one Zergling can attack, and he might actually finish the bunker.
With only 6 seconds left remaining. But this caused Finchy to make a lot more Zerglings early on than he would like. And during all that kind of panic, Neurosis did delay getting his Warpgate technology up and chrono boosted out. So now these Zerglings are out on the field, and they will start doing any scouting damage or pick off any of these running Marines. Run, Marines!
I think the Marines are going to be just fine as LeBouf comes out with his 2 Stalkers, and they're actually going to be able to pick off a few of these Zerglings, and, you know, small little exchanges in the early stages of this game. And actually, speaking of exchanges, looks like LeBouf and Jabberwock want to push out and actually put on a little bit of pressure. Yeah, and this is actually going to be a little bit scary.
Before talking about any of the big battles, we do have just 3 gateways right now for LeBouf and 3 naked racks from Jabberwock as he is getting his command center up. We do now have some spine crawlers, and it looks like Finchy is staying for kind of speedling tech. A little skirmish has gone down.
Finchy is actually losing a lot of his Zerglings right now, though. And this could actually expel a lot of disaster, and now a reinforcing swarm of another 12 Zerglings coming out and trying to corner LeBouf's 3 Stalkers, which are being microed back. Meanwhile, a bunker going down from Jabberwock, and he's just kind of poking, and wow, there's just battles, little exchanges going on everywhere in this game.
Yeah, this is chaotic. This is how Jabberwock likes to play. Just keep the game constantly in pressure, especially with a fast expanding Zerg. But now you have to be careful, because now these are speedlings, and they were able to hold off all that early aggression. It looks like LeBouf just tried to move out a little too early with that, as he only had 1 gateway that was able to really spawn anything. And now we finally have some Zealots, as he was just getting pure Stalkers, and these Zerglings actually get a full surround on these Stalkers, and these Zealots are coming down, but we're going to lose 2 of the Stalkers before anything else happens.
And the Purdue University players are not going to be...
And I saw it just real quick is that a Warp Prism was completed. I'm trying to get a... Yep, Warp Prism for Neurosis. So they are going to do some kind of little shenanigan backdoor action very shortly. But it looks
that's going to be very fun to see.
Yes. And Jabberwock and LeBouf have both taken their expansion, while Neurosis is still staying on 1 base. So if this game does go into the later stage of the game, Purdue should have a slight advantage. But it looks like University of Arlington is getting ready for a big push or big pressure, and I don't know if this bunker is going to be completed in time with under 20 seconds left.
And yeah, it looks like Finchy's Zerglings are going to go ahead and poke just to see what exactly is at the front, if they think that this pressure can be done. And actually, surprisingly deciding no, they don't want to engage over there. And that's kind of surprising for me. I guess they were a little bit afraid about the bunker being down and the high zealot count.
Well,
but it looks like, yeah.
The Zerg player is actually getting his armor upgrade first and has no Roach Warren or anything. That extra armor on his Zerglings I don't think is going to do too much to help in these big battles.
One thing that it'll definitely do is that it will actually make sure that even if LeBouf gets that +1 armor upgrade on his Zealots, the Zerglings will actually take 3 hits to die as opposed to 2 hits. So I think that might be the reason why he's going for that armor upgrade first. But one thing I'm not so sure I like about the University of Texas Arlington players' play is that they are kind of sitting back with the larger army and maybe trying to play catch-up on economy, as we do see Neurosis is going for that expansion, while it looks like LeBouf and Jabberwock both already have their expansions up and running.
And just to talk about the worker count right now, Neurosis at 27 compared to LeBouf, who's already at 40, and that's the mirror. And we have 41 drones to 32 SCVs, but Jabberwock also has mules, remind you, so his income should be...
Mules.
Yeah, mules. And as we can see, Neurosis is actually behind with gathering minerals even compared to Jabberwock. And these Zerglings really want to get somewhere, but they just can't quite make it. There we go.
Yeah. We actually see the Warp Prism being loaded up with 3 Sentry, 4th one being warped in and going into the Warp Prism, and now it's going to be going across the top, but there is that Watchtower control.
Oh, and an observer actually spots it.
Oh!
So as long as LeBouf or Jabberwock was able to view that from their mini-map...
Oh, he did spot it. He's moving the Stalkers in position to deal with this Warp Prism. We're going to have to see if Neurosis is paying attention.
Yeah, that's huge. LeBouf needs to position. He doesn't know exactly what is going to be spawned. It looks like he's just barely out of range, and I'm just going to keep LeBouf's vision here just for a second to see exactly when he spots this Warp Prism. Any second now.
This looks like he's a little bit distracted, just making sure he keeps up all that macro, moving his army around, producing more units, all of that stuff, and making sure he gets that +1 weapons upgrade. It looks like he's actually not going to decide to do the drop yet.
Okay, maybe they're getting ready to do some aggression in the front, so this seems just a little ill-timed, but I'm very surprised that LeBouf hasn't been poking in these kind of odd nooks, looking for that Warp Prism, especially after scouting it. Yeah,
especially since he does actually even have 2 observers on the map, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, 2 observers. So he could be a little bit more active with that second observer, as it's so darn close to that Warp Prism. But oh well. So why don't you go ahead and explain, what do you think Jabberwock's up to in this matchup right now?
Alright, so I just looked at very briefly when we were waiting for that drop that Jabberwock does have +1 in just combat shields. And he hasn't... Where is it? Where's Stim? Or did Stim just finish as I clicked away? Okay, he does have Stim.
Oh. Neurosis actually poked in with the Warp Prism and saw the Stalker count and decided to back off. It looks like he might be going for Jabberwock instead.
And LeBouf is actually blinking in, trying to catch it, but the Warp Prism went a different route. Jabberwock is going such a mass bio. I'm really surprised we haven't seen a single medevac. Because
the Warp Prism's unloading, and the Sentry's inside of Jabberwock's space, and he's going to get a force field down on the ramp and stopping all the Marines from coming out. He's going to be able to do a decent amount of damage, but...
Oh, and a Nidus Worm is actually going down by Finchy in the main base. LeBouf is going to be able to pick this off with those Blink Stalkers, and they did not expect the Protoss to have tech. Blink should be... Oh, he could have blinked again to snipe off that Warp Prism. But that was a very interesting play using Warp Prism to then do a Nidus play. And we do now have a lot of Hydralisks with +1 upgrades. No additional upgrades are going down at this time. And what I'm really afraid with Jabberwock, not only is he heavily supply blocked, but he needs to continue getting... Oh, he just started +2.
Oh, actually, so is LeBouf. A little bit supply blocked as he wants to create that... another Colossus. We do see quite a few Colossus coming out for LeBouf. He's already up to 2. Meanwhile, it looks like the other Protoss, Neurosis, is opting to go for his own Colossus. Yes. Oh, okay.
Someone was trying to get their warp gates.
Ooh, but Neurosis
oh my
actually
God!
has to be
Look at
careful.
the amount of Hydras that are in here. We have 19 Hydras out on the field. A Zerg. Wow, this is like old school Brood War composition.
Hold that thought. Neurosis actually has a really bad rally point on one of his Colossus. It's rallied straight over to LeBouf's base, and it's actually just walking straight over there. It might get sniped off if he isn't paying attention. That's actually a huge loss. Oh my god, it's walking straight into LeBouf's army, and now he's finally trying to get the last second.
Oh, this is a sad day in baseball when one Colossus runs away from 3 Marines.
I'm so glad Neurosis ended up catching that, as he would definitely be hitting himself.
It looks like LeBouf is going to lose this 3rd expansion that he tried to take. There are no cannons and not even an army, as Purdue has kept all of their army together in front of their base. It looks like LeBouf has started the movement. We have +1/+1 for LeBouf, and this is going to lag a little bit as there's the Colossus. Day of the world over here. These Zerglings are just going to get fried.
Huge concave Purdue University's players, but it looks like the Blue Terrans, Marines, and Marauders are a little bit out of position, and wow, it's just going crazy in here. The Colossus killing off the Hydralisk, the Stalkers getting killed off by the Hydralisk. Actually, it looks like the
everything kills Hydralisk. Yeah, as University of Arlington is in full retreat right now, as a few good hits from those Colossus and all of those Hydralisks just completely melt. Hydralisk versus even the Terran army, which is primarily Marines. Marines do excessive amount of damage with the stim, and now we finally have a few medevacs out on the field, which means Marines nearly never die. As a Terran player,
what's more imba than a Marine that doesn't die? I mean, Marines are imba enough, right?
Well, the only thing more imba than that is a Marauder who never dies, and that happens much more commonly, especially in the TVZ matchup. If you've ever seen Zerglings completely surround a Marauder, that Marauder's going to kill every single one of them as long as the medevac is there. This Colossus escaped with 7 health. That is so lucky for Neurosis, but it looks like Purdue is playing it relatively safe by just expanding and not trying to push their luck. We do have now 2-2 with the Bio Army for Terran. Let me find a unit for a 2-2 with our Protoss, 2-1 for the University of Arlington's Protoss, and just the carapace upgrades and +1 range.
Interesting decision, though, from the University of Arlington. And he is actually going for +3 before he +3 weapons before he goes for +2 armor. So he's going to be 3-1 pretty soon, as that upgrade is about halfway complete.
And we have a lot.
And I actually hear Zell. Oh wow! There's a War Prism from LeBouf sniping off the robotics bay in University of Arlington, Texas.
Get it. And let's see if he runs away. He needs to run away.
He might be able to get it away.
And Jabberwock was able to take out Neurosis' 3rd up here, so this attack was extremely worth it. They just need to pull back and just wait for Team of Arlington to just overcommit or split their army up in an unadvantaged way. We may even have a drop right now.
I really love this aggression for more than just one reason, and that's that all the aggression is happening at the top left side of the map. So that means that the University of Arlington, Texas's units are all going to have to be at the top left defending that. Meanwhile, LeBouf can securely take this 3rd expansion over in the bottom right-hand corner, as well as Jabberwocks in the bottom right-hand corner. So they're forcing all of the University of Arlington, Texas's units to be up in the top, so they can't actually do any damage to these 3rd expansions.
And there's another drop going down, but what I really don't like is Purdue isn't working together. Their armies are split up on the main field. Their drops should have been coordinated to do maximum amount of damage, or even just to drop in different places on the map. As long as Purdue can start working together, they can increase their damage output significantly, especially with these almost 3-3 bio units almost fully made. And if we have a little pause here, but Jabberwock is moving into this Baneling range, and this is really bad not having LeBouf's army, which is absolutely doing nothing. So the Jabberwock's army is in huge trouble right now, but is able to escape and luckily dodges any Thungals that approach at all. But now Neurosis is getting pushed back. LeBouf is finally trying to regroup. They may be regrouping. Right here is where we'll see the main battle, I predict. And that's where we have it right now. A bunch of Colossus are going off, shooting. We have Guardian Shields. Archons are trapped in the back, though. We're going to have huge bailing hits right now. The entire Bio army is completely decimated. But we now have LeBouf's army, which is ginormous, but not as much Colossus. This is very scary. It looks like they tried to overcommit by doing those cutesy little drops and forgot to get the power units. It looks like Jabberwock stayed on just pure bio for too long and didn't get any of the big scary units. We even have Infested Terran going down, but we're having this World over the World battle right now, and we have 4 BCs coming out of the field. So all Purdue needs to do is just hold this off for a little bit longer, but that goes down the last Colossus. All we have are SCVs versus Colossus, and that is a very scary thing to see. We have a few more Marauders that are trying to pick off Hydralisk, but that never ends well without any medevac support. But it looks like since there's only just this 1 Infestor and 3 Colossus that they're going to wait for reinforcements on the way, but that's going to be enough time for these battle cruisers to pop up on the field, and Colossus cannot attack air, unfortunately. That is a patch that is coming in the heart of the storm, and we just have to wait.
Oh my god, these Colossus have so many kills. One sitting up at 19, now 20, another one at 24, 29. And another one at 30. Wow.
Yeah, but now these battle cruisers out on the field just
Jabberwock actually dropped into the University of Texas Arlington's main.
Oh, with those 2 medevacs, he was waiting until the big battle. Yeah, we missed that entirely, Cocaster. You're supposed to be looking for that.
I saw it at the last second. But that is actually going to slow the game, as I guess the purple Protoss player didn't really feel like he could reinforce quite as much, and I guess that's going to put the series at 2-1 in favor of Purdue University for now.
And that's exactly what it's going to do. That is a huge victory, and as I said it even before we started the 2s, I really like 2s just because of that shenanigans that can happen. It just really makes the game fun, in that there's just so many things going down. I think even though that Purdue won, I'm just going to go over it really quickly. Not having the armies together is why Jabberwock lost that bio army, and that's why the University of Texas Arlington was able to do so much with that final push. If those Colossus and Stalkers were together, that the Banelings would have done much less damage, as the Colossus would have been in range to then just snipe them before they did anything. But the biggest thing of why University of Texas Arlington kind of lost is they could not get a 3rd up. They even got their 2nds up a lot later compared to Purdue, and with that constant drop harassment of the Marines medevacs and even the Zealot drops from LeBouf, just really slowed down that accelerant from the Protoss player especially, and that's ultimately what we saw win the game at the last second. There was that 2 medevac drop which just cleaned out the Protoss army, so they held it off and they just could not resupply, and it became a 2 versus 1 very quickly.
But I have to say, it became a very close game toward the end, where University of Texas Arlington really put up quite a bit of a fight in pushing into Purdue University's base, and I was actually unsure if Purdue University could really hold that off at that point.
It was very good. I missed a lot of what you said, sorry. Because I was fielding some questions that people were shooting me related to the games. The biggest thing that Jabberwock was happy with was the battle cruisers, and I had to say that's what I thought was just awesome. That's my favorite strategy as Terran, is just to stay with bio, and then ultimately as soon as you get to that late game scenario, you start losing your bio, and then you resupply with battle cruisers, and that switch is just so scary, especially when your opponent doesn't have any air kind of dominance. And as we saw, the 4 sentries completely just annihilate those Colossus, and even though Hydralisk were out on the field or able to be on the field, it just wouldn't have been enough with a BC Colossus army.
Yeah, I completely agree. Actually, one other thing I really wanted to touch upon was the great teamwork that University of Texas Arlington had with that kind of planned strategy of, oh, we're going to use a war prison to drop some sentries in. We're going to force field out the armies from being able to get up, and then we're going to Nidus network into that base. And I thought that was a really cool and interesting strategy. And it really goes to show the teamwork. Unfortunately, it turned out that LeBouf had blink research, so he was able he was able to blink up and deny the Nidus network and snipe off a single sentry. But really innovative and cool play from University of Texas in Arlington.
I've seen observers being used for that Nidus. I did not expect that Warp Prism. That was a very interesting, especially being able to completely cut off reinforcements. But unfortunately, as we just talked about, the Blink Stalkers were able to get up there and take out the Nidus form before it was completed. What would have been, I think, just a little bit better if he had a few different Nidus networks that were going up at once rather than that one location. Because if you start splitting up 2 players with their forces all over the map, if you start doing 3 Nidus at a time, that's really hard to react to, especially if you're trying to keep both your armies together the whole time, because then there can be a lack of communication of, oh, I can start that, I can stop this Nidus network, you worry about this one, and then you just start overcommitting units, and then the Nidus network comes out, and then you have 20 Hydralisks in your base, which nobody likes to have.
Yeah, 20 Hydralisks in your base. You know, we were saying that Hydralisks melt to Colossus, but I'll tell you one thing. Hydralisks do a lot of damage really fast, and if you want to see a base just get demolished... Huh?
You said Hydralisk.
Colossus melts Hydralisks. Yeah, sorry. Don't make Hydralisks if you see a lot of Colossus. Don't do that in your ladder game. It's not going to go well. But no, Hydralisks do pretty darn good damage, so they can just completely level a base pretty darn fast. So you have to be very careful about that.
Yeah. But just to start moving on to our 4th game, I'm going to make a quick little change here, as I believe I haven't been following everything, but we will be having a substitution. Rather than Razor, as he was unavailable for a reason I don't know, we are going to substitute in Endless. So let me find the right, is this it? Damn.
Endless Waltz.
So just give me 1 second. Razor goes away.
Actually, Gundam Wing reference, I believe.
It very well could be. Oh, I haven't seen that in so long. So there we have Endless Waltz's stats up there. There was some talk, well, I just prepared all our top players' stats, so it was just really easy to change. And as we can see, we are going to have a ZVZ for our 4th game today. And Endless Waltz has only played, what is that, 1 Zerg, 1 ZVZ, and has 1 rather than Hit, which has played 3, and has only won 1 of them. Am I reading that right? It's very small on my screen.
Yeah, he only has played 1 game in ZVZ and has, in fact, only won 1 of them. One thing that's interesting to note about this player in particular, Endless Waltz, is that he actually has been playing for Purdue University very much as of late. His last game, I believe, was about almost 3 months ago.
I don't think it was that long.
So,
was it really 3 months?
Yeah, it was actually at toward the beginning of January.
Wow. Yeah, but the main reason why that Endless Waltz is actually a very well-known, or I believe he's a well-known Dota 2 player. He was one of the first people to get a Dota 2 key and has been streaming non-stop since it, and that's where his main focus is. But a lot like, oh, no one saw that show, so that's a hard metaphor. I'm still going to make it. If anyone's watched the show Hikaru no Go, which is an anime about the game Go, there was a shogi player. Even though he was the captain of the shogi club and his main focus was shogi, he was still a very good Go player in the school tournament. So that's the metaphor I'm going with, and if you don't know it, it's that.
Go watch it, I guess.
Yeah. I like it, but you're watching an anime about a game, so it's about as bad as watching Yu-Gi-Oh! And I say
hey, don't knock Yu-Gi-Oh! Okay, that was a pretty good show.
Right.
You just have to believe in the heart of the cards, and
it's all about the heart.
You'll end up drawing the card you want, right?
I mean, when I go to Friday Night Magic, that's all I do. I just sit on my deck and like heart of the cards, bam! I don't even look at it. I just play it. Like that's how risky I am. Which is really weird.
If only that worked in StarCraft. Okay, for the card. He did not get detection. Yes, my Banshee's Decimate is broken.
Oh, you mean your Dark Templar?
No, I'm actually a Masters level Terran player. I don't know if you know. I actually have a 100% win rate with Terran in Collegiate Star League.
This is a true statement in twos. You have a 100% win average playing as Terran. This is entirely true. I will swear on a Bible that is accurate.
I'll give you guys the lowdown, the secret on this. What actually happened was we didn't have our Terran player ready for that game. As we were talking before, how Purdue University really generally tends to field the same set of 7 or so players, and our Terran players weren't available. So I ended up playing, and I played Protoss. So I was just really not ready for this. So what I did was I was actually partnered up with LaBouffe, and I said, "Look, LaBouffe," and I pinged on the map, and I said, "This is where the units are going to be. If they're not attacking, it's your fault." And we won! So, props to LaBouffe for carrying me during that. It makes me look like a very good Terran when I was pretty darn bad.
Yeah, I casted that game solely, and some parts were very painful to watch. Later on, I found out that he didn't control most of his things.
Namely, building my barracks, not making a Marine, going straight for the tech lab, so I didn't have any units when I was getting my tech lab. Researching combat shields, and then only making Marauders for about a minute.
Yeah, that was a little painful.
Combat shield does not help Marauders. I learned that. No, I actually knew that, but I wasn't really thinking about that.
It was still entertaining, but ultimately we won. If I remember correctly, the opposing Protoss got supply block for a long time, and LaBouffe did a 4-gate with your 3 racks, and you just kept up pressure, and that's what you're supposed to do, and ultimately won the game. It wasn't sloppily played. I mean, a lot like how we saw in Game 2, with the Protoss player missing that first couple pylons, and it just offset his entire build. That's what happened. But then, obviously, in a 2v2, you have 2 players that are growing faster than you, and so they just got overrun eventually.
Yeah, definitely snowballs, just a lot faster.
Yes. So we are.
But anyways, let's talk about the next game that's going to be played, and we do have those statistics for at least one of the players, correct?
What's that?
The statistics for the other Zerg player for Purdue University of Texas Arlington.
Yeah, they're up there right now. He's played in 3 ZVZs and is 1 and 2 with it, if I can read this correct. And I haven't looked up what strategies he likes to do, because we haven't seen Endless Waltz play in so long, and I mean, that ZVZ was a long time ago. The last game that I remember playing was a ZVP, so all I know is Endless Waltz is just cheese-proof. I've never seen him get cheesed, and lost to a cheese is what I'm saying. I've seen him get cheesed a lot, especially when he used to play all the time.
I've seen him eat cheese a lot, but
exactly.
He is cheese-proof.
He goes down to the, what is it? Oh, I buy cheese. The Fair Oaks Farms, which is just down the road, about 20 to 30-minute drive for me. They have really good cheese there.
I actually wouldn't know. I'm allergic to cheese.
Yeah, I always forget that.
Fun fact.
You need to eat something more than just greens.
I need to eat cheese anyways.
Well, you live on like rice and green vegetables. I mean, that's what you have.
Rice and green vegetables.
What else do you eat?
We eat at Qdoba a lot.
And what do you get at Qdoba? Rice and...
Yeah, I get a burrito, and they're like, what do you want to put in? I'm like, rice and beans,
beans.
Maybe some lettuce. Yeah, that's good. Just wrap it up now. We're good to go.
I'll just take. Are sure you don't want? Yeah. Just wrap it up. Come on.
Oh, but yeah. Anyways, going back to Endless Waltz. He's actually played some really fantastic games at one of the local Purdue LAN events against a very strong player named Slayer's Boxer. Not the Slayer's Boxer off in Korea, but definitely a very strong player. Was actually in Grandmaster for a little while as well. And he played these games against Endless Waltz and went for some, not necessarily cheese, but very strong one-base pushes. And, Endless Waltz did a really wonderful job of holding those off. So, wouldn't expect Endless Waltz to fall too easily to any super early aggression, but we're going to have to see how this ends up playing out.
And you just talked about his performance at local tournaments that we had with other players, but he also has a Korean account in which he's played against people like OGS The Wind, who's the coach for OGS, and he's very comfortable not only playing NA GMs, but he's also comfortable playing Korean GMs when he used to play all the time. So that's something to really know, and especially the Korean server, they're much more aggressive. So I still think if you're going to play against him, to try to get the game as long as possible. He's still a really good player, but I think his biggest strength is that early and mid game. And I just haven't seen enough of his late game plays to really determine how his late game is. With that said, I've never seen him lose a ZBT in which he gets a third base, so this is
it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be very interesting because he hasn't played for a while. I saw him laddering a few days ago, and I was shocked. Like, my heart just like, what is going on?
He still owns the game?
Exactly. I was just completely blown away by just his presence on my interweb. So we will be having Endless Waltz and Hit. We just joined the game. We haven't begun yet.
One last thing about Endless Waltz, though, that I always find really interesting, and actually frustrates me just a little bit. He actually doesn't play with very many hotkeys, so we'll actually see that in the game.
Yes.
His hotkey bar is next to empty. He'll do some initial hotkeys at the very beginning with maybe his initial hatchery and stuff, but then he just says, you know what, to hell with it, I can just select my units as I need them. So one interesting thing, and we're going to actually see how Hit will end up doing against Endless Waltz. We haven't actually gotten a chance to talk that much about Hit. We don't actually have that many statistics about him. One thing we do have, I think, is he is... sorry, 1 second. Nope, don't have that, actually. Never mind. Don't have his statistics for this match. Or, sorry, for this map. Thought I did, but... Right? And actually, you know, as you were the former Zerg player, what do you think about Zerg versus Zerg on this map? Although I guess this map wasn't out when you were playing Zerg.
Yeah, when I was a Zerg player, I didn't see this map too much. Nothing has changed too much. I think the spawn distances are a little wider, so it's a little easier to throw down, say, the hatch first, even though it hurts some Zergs to hear that. But more and more with the maps being so spread out, it's easier to defend any really early aggression or even the standard 14-14 play, which is then the Zerg banelings, because you can usually get that hatchery down fairly safe and defend it off by getting spine crawlers and all that other fun shenanigans. And then as long as you hold off any aggression, you should be able to hold things off. I don't think we're going to see any of that play this time. I think we will be able to see the standard kind of 14-14. But without further ado, we first have in the top right section, does this seem slow to you?
Seems okay to me.
Okay.
there goes Endless Waltz plugging his stream.
Yes, and go watch him if you're a Dota fan.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that later.
We do have
First,
the green Zerg spawning in the top right section. Hit playing for the University of Texas Arlington. Why didn't it zoom? Oh, fuck!
Wrong button.
Oh my god.
Alright, and with that very embarrassing technical
difficulty...
difficulty...
I'm not zooming in. I'm just not doing it.
Okay. In the bottom left-hand corner, we have the blue Zerg. He has a stream that he was plugging already, so I'm not going to say too much more about him. We have Endless Waltz.
Mouse wheel. Mouse wheel is nowhere near pause.
So I think the really interesting thing that I generally tend to see in this matchup is whether or not the Zergs actually decide to go for roaches, or when they decide to go for roaches, and whether or not they decide to go for a baneling nest. So what are your thoughts about that?
It all depends on what you scout. How I still like ZVZ to be played out is getting that Baneling nest and starting that Baneling aggression. Now, when to do it, try not to follow me, because each time that I tried to do it, I lose. And Endless Waltz is doing exactly what I was talking about at the beginning of the game. With just having such longer walking distances that you can be able to get that hatchery down. So we're going to see this play out, how this works out. We did have the gas burst from Hit, which gets the spawning pool, so he may be going for this Baneling play, which I kind of detect. I can't talk now. We may be getting a very early Baneling nest. We may even be getting the 5-minute and 30-second Baneling timing, which is extremely risky and extremely aggressive from the Zerg player. But so far, the only scouts that are going down are these Overlords, which is extremely common in the Zerg versus Zerg matchup, as the only thing that attacks up is Queens, so you get those extremely later. The second Overlord from Endless Waltz was a little delayed because all the minerals went into this hatchery, so there was no need for them. And we do have the first 6 Zerglings out on the field, and we stopped mining gas exactly at 100. So we will not be getting that very quick Baneling nest. Instead, we will be getting this very fast expansion, as Endless Waltz does spot it.
We do see a Spinecrawler going down for Endless Waltz, so he is probably expecting this early aggression. That Overlord did manage to see that natural expansion from Hit was just now going down, so much later than Endless Waltz, probably expecting a huge influx of Zerglings. So he wants to play extra safe, get that Spinecrawler out, as well as get out a couple of Zerglings. But it looks like Hit wants to maybe get out a couple of Zerglings to do pressure with, and then macro out of this. So definitely not probably going to be seeing a huge all-in anytime in the exact near future.
Yeah, and actually the timing that's going to happen is all these Zerglings are going to hit when speed finishes. And that's the scary time. Hit.
They're going to hit.
And so far there's no additional gas, so we probably will not see any additional Zerglings coming out. And actually just looking at the production tab right now from Hit, he may not build any drones out of that second hatchery and just do this very strong Zergling play. And these drones just missed
Endless Waltz is actually in a really rough position right now.
Yeah, Endless Waltz tried to pull off these. Yep, and Endless is going to call it. What Endless wanted to do is have those these drones wall off this, and he just missed the Zerglings, and that small micro trick costed the game.
Yeah, that's a really hard loss to swallow. But the bright side about this is that it is in fact going to go to the Ace match, so we get to cast more games.
Hooray! And just to note, with Hit, what he was doing as we were leaving the game, more and more Zerglings were going in. I actually saw this strategy being posted on Team Liquid in detail about this hyper-aggression Zergling play, in which you just, because you have the Queen and the 2 hatcheries that are just continually producing Zerglings, you just need to evenly trade their Zerglings before they even get Banelings, and just keep up this pressure, because eventually you'll have so many more Zerglings than they do that you'll be able to overrun. Now with Endless Waltz of getting that very fast expansion and getting that Spinecrawler, which is a very common technique, but it's mainly to defend against hyper-aggressive Baneling play, because the Spinecrawlers can then target down the Banelings before there's any huge damage that is done to them, and then with the Queens are able to target the Banelings down even more. It doesn't do as well against mass Zerglings because Spinecrawlers have such a slow attack rate, and it takes so many hits before the Spinecrawler kills the Zerglings that they just get overrun. And as we saw, that Endless Waltz just had drones and tried that simple wall up to get that full surround on the ramp, but was unable to just time it just right. He had the Overlords to spot that the Zerglings were coming in his direction, but almost like how in Protoss versus Protoss, if you miss micro for 1 second, you miss that force field once, or you miss that warp in just by a few seconds, you'll lose the game. And that's how that build order works against each other.
Yeah, definitely.
Would you
I
like
think
to try to
every
add
mirror
to-
matchup very much being played on a razor edge. It's even the smallest mistake, the slightest advantage can really end up paying off huge dividends. So a little bit sad that it ended up being such a short game. I was ready to really get into the depths of ZVZ, talk about Hydralisk and Mutalisk and Ultralisk Broodlords. Broodlord versus Broodlord, one of my favorite engagements to watch because it's just Broodlings versus Broodlings.
That's not as exciting as seeing BC versus BC. Come on. These slowly things like, I'm getting you! Except the Broodlords just stare at each other and they go, sup, bro? You want to make ground units? Nope. Okay. And they just wait. And yeah, there's Corruptors, so it's a little more entertaining than that, but they're just so slow, so it's just like, oh, we overextended, run away, hold on,
run away,
okay, now I'm running, oh.
Run away.
But that was just a little unfortunate, a little miss micro. I did really like, they're talking about, I cannot.
That mustache.
That mustache, yes. They're just talking about administrative things right now, so there's going to be a little more time before they decide the ace match. But I really actually enjoyed watching that hatch first versus the gas first play. It's what I consider now a very classic transitional period. Now,
new school versus old school, you mean?
Yes, in which the traditional mindset is to get this gas, to get the spawning pool, and start this aggression. While the new kind of school mindset is to get this hatchery because the maps are getting bigger, so we feel a little safer defending most early aggression, which is coming our way. And Endless actually was getting ready to hold it off perfectly, brilliantly. Like, I would have screamed harder than watching an Overlord die to a single Marine. And no one gets that except Robbie, but like I just really wanted to see that happen, but I think it's mainly because Endless Waltz just hasn't played very recently that he made that super small miss micro which costed him the game.
Yeah, definitely. But anyways, so we are probably going to go into the ace match, and do you want to go ahead and explain how the format for the ace match works?
So the ace match, do I even have the ace match? No, I don't. Oh, I usually have the ace match map up there, so I don't even know the map. So each player, once it goes to the ace match, picks who they want to throw out. So now it's that Pokemon style of like, hey, you're really good, or they can even start getting into mind games of like, well, I think their best player is a Terran, so we should throw out a Protoss player, or something like that. And then they can also look at the map, which I don't know what it is. If you want to look it up real quick, you can figure it out. But and then it's still a best of one and all that, but it can be anyone who's played today. So Makomi can go back out there, Bamu can go back out there, well, Marazer isn't present, Laboof, even Jabberwock, who played in twos, can play in a 1 versus 1 for this ace match.
And we could also see someone that hasn't played at all. So.
Correct. So because Texas of Arlington has such a big player base, they may even throw this curveball that we haven't even seen today. So it's really hard to predict their play style and everything else. From other CSLs which have gone to the ace match, you can kind of see like, okay, well, in this matchup, he did this. So we can predict that he's going to do something similar, since this is a pre-knowledge tournament. I'm sure there's a better word for it, but you know the matchups, you know the maps, so you can prepare a certain build or certain timing for that race, for that map going into it. So usually you just have that one build that's just in your head, and that's all you're going to do today because you decided that's going to be your best build. It's not a ladder game. It's not, I feel like, going Thor Rush. Like, you usually don't make those decisions. You usually just stick to your plan. Yeah, it's just like, one base battle cruiser rush seems nice.
Mono battle, let's do it.
Okay, it looks like their lineup is up. I don't know their players yet, so I'm anxiously waiting the game.
Alrighty.
It looks like Ultram is one to play. Versus... I don't know, I'm still waiting to get invited. So we're going to kill just a little bit more time. Do you know the map, Ravi, at all? Or Food Dragon?
I actually... Oh, it is in fact Tal'Darim Alter LE.
Oh,
now, Tal'Darim Alter LE is actually the Blizzard version.
Yes.
So that means there
are
those painful destructible rocks at your third. You do have to knock them down if you want to take that third. You can go ahead and try and take a third further across the map, but yeah, unfortunately, Blizzard does love their destructible rocks.
Yeah, and I will not be doing the zoom in things. I extremely apologize for that. I don't know how I slipped that bad to hit the pause button, but I did. So, I'm going to try not to do that anymore. I think it was only because I also was set to being the host that I was able to pause, because I think usually spectators aren't allowed to pause. So I'm also usually not used to having that.
Okay, that's a looks of disappointment, but no problem. We won't be doing those zoom-ins quite as much anymore.
Yeah.
Just make sure that the players get to play optimally and do exactly what they want. Make sure that they're not thrown off by external things. So, do we actually know who is going to be playing? It looks like I think Hit is going to be playing for University of Texas Arlington.
Okay. Okay, and it looks like it's actually Makomi versus Hit, so we're having a PvZ on Tal'Darim Alter. And I'm not going to talk about any strategies that I think or know what players like to go up against or not go up against, because I've been getting complaints, and I completely think that there's no stream cheating going on or any of that. But I've had complaints from Purdue saying that I just talk too much about our players. So, Ravi, do you have anything to say before I talk about the map or anything?
You know, I do, and that's that. I do recall. I'm actually getting the exact statistics right now.
Okay.
But I do recall having some pretty interesting evenness in all of the matchups on Tal'Darim Alter. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up those statistics really quickly. I'm actually looking at Brood War statistics right now, so that's a... No, but all the matchups in Tal'Darim Alter, despite a lot of complaints, obviously there's a lot of complaints about Protoss versus Protoss on Tal'Darim Alter, because there's that lack of high ground between your main and your natural, yes. So that makes the 4-gate oh so strong in Protoss versus Protoss. But in every matchup, it looks like...
We're not going to see a 4-gate in PvZ. Well, unless you're Korean, and then...
You might not see a 4-gate. There is the potential for a 4-gate. It has been known to happen.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Actually, Liquipedia not really showing the matchup statistics for Tal'Darim Alter that I can see at least.
Well, that's fine.
But it is a pretty even map. And just because there are so many expansions on this map, that means that we are actually a lot more likely to see really late-game Protoss versus Zerg, which is always a lot of fun. I mean, who doesn't like seeing a Mothership unless you're the Zerg player?
Exactly. And I still like seeing... Are you in the game? I'm joining a game.
I am in fact in the game, and now you are too.
No, I am too. Alright, so what I'm doing... I'm throwing up the map right now. And so, as you talked about before, I've been kicked from the game. Awesome.
I was kicked from the game as well.
Okay, so I'm not just smelly. I hate when that happens. Oh, everyone knows my rank and how many games I've played.
It's okay. You don't play many games on the ladder anyway.
I play so many custom games.
You play so many custom games, though.
I didn't accuse... I got complaints from Purdue. They don't want us to cast the game live. I got complaints from Purdue, and so then the other team said we can't cast the game. Okay, it wasn't an accusation at all. And everything that I said, I never accused them.
Yeah, I think we definitely we definitely believe that the players are not stream cheating at all or anything. I think that we were just saying.
Wasn't that?
Go ahead.
No, we can go back and watch the VODs. I never said that, so that's fine. We'll just cast the games when they're done. So that's highly unfortunate that there is this delay, and I wish just the best of luck to both Purdue University and University of Texas Arlington in this game. I still won't talk about strategies because the Purdue player asked me not to talk about strategies, and that's the only thing I said why I'm not talking about strategies. Not because of stream cheating or anything else, but just that he didn't want me to talk so much in detail about our players. That's it.
Okay, yeah. A little bit of an unfortunate ending, but don't worry. You guys can actually tune in and catch all of the VODs, and you'll actually get to see the Ace match, which we aren't going to be able to cast right now, but we will be able to cast in the future, so look forward to that. So where can we find those VODs, Curtis?
You can find the VODs for an additional week at my Twitch TV, but ultimately they'll go on my YouTube address, which is YouTube/OnMyFace and all that fun stuff. And are you also throwing them on your YouTube?
You know, I think that sounds like a fabulous idea, and I think that you can catch actually my YouTube channel at youtube.com/FearDragon64. That's, you know, Fear Dragon as in fear, rawr, dragon, raw. I roared twice. But anyways, and then 64 as in Nintendo 64. And if you guys enjoyed any of the casting done by Curtis or myself or both of us, then please subscribe to either and actually both of our channels. So you obviously are at Curtis's channel right now. You can probably see this unless you're watching the VODs. In which case you can just hit the subscriber button right down there.
For the VODs, doesn't hurt at all. Remove this little part because I just have the games. Just so it's easier, because a lot of people don't want to load up. What we started casting at like actually we started at 8:30, and I'm not going to have 3 hours of just airtime and then only play the 5 games. So I do. If you just want to watch game 2, I'm just going to have the link for game 2, and it's just going to be that. I don't know how long game 2 was, but like that 15 minutes, it's just going to be that. Just to make it easier, and I have my fun editing software and all that, which you'll see hearts as transitions, as it's really fun. I don't know. I'm trying to do a little bit more with the video editing, just to make it a little more interesting to not only the eye, but to make things more understandable. But I don't want to be obnoxious with it. Like, I don't want to just like zoom in all the time using the editing software.
Zoom in.
Like,
oh no, I accidentally paused.
Oh, I felt so bad.
Just kidding.
Oh, I felt so bad.
There.
Like, I didn't even know what happened. I actually thought I left the game when I hit the button. I was just like, oh my god, did I leave?
Oh.
But again, we haven't casted a game now for what, 2-3 weeks, and I think you did the last one by yourself because I was out of town for work.
Yes, that was very fun.
Yeah,
I actually have this little issue that because obviously I'm also constantly striving to improve my own casting, so I have little tics that I still need to get rid of, and I tend to do that a lot for some reason. So it's a really weird tic to do.
I touch my face a lot, and I look around a lot. I'm working on that. I've actually been trying to constantly look at the webcam, and just for the fun effect, look to the side as I'm looking at Fear Dragon as if he's in the same room. But as you can clearly see, our backgrounds are very different.
How are you doing?
Just to make it a little bit more fun. This is the first time we've had the 2 webcams set up, and also I'm just going to show it because we have the time and all that. These pages are entirely new, showing the player stats. I'm going to be creating a database to simplify the process, because setting up all this took me like 2 to 3 hours to customize each crop and then to modify things to not have personal information out on the web. You can find this information on the web, but I don't want to make it easier for people to find it. So I've put in the time to make it hard to have your personal information, such as your real name and any character codes and all that fun stuff.
Okay, yeah, and I was about to say something about something. Oh yeah, one last plug that I need to do for myself. Like I said, constantly striving to improve casting, and I'm actually doing a challenge that Day 9 issued to me when I went and talked to him at MLG Columbus. And he said, you know what, if you want to cast, just cast for 30 days. So I'm actually taking everyone's replays. I'm going to cast 100% of replays that are submitted to me, as long as they are not something like Star Jeweled or, you know, some Lord of the Rings custom map or anything. Regular games. I'll cast 2v2s as well. I'll even cast 3v3s and 4v4s if you really want to submit those, but I prefer 1v1s. Anyways, you can submit those to feardragon64@gmail.com. You'll notice that it's just feardragon64 as the username for everything. But yeah, so submit those, and I will cast them and upload them to my YouTube channel, so you can be completely E-famous.
And just to add on, please send him any Zerg vs. Zerg replays or ZVT replays.
Yes. Because I'm terrible at those matches.
Because he's terrible at those. Not just because you're terrible at those, but because I think you learn the best from starting from your weakest link and then building upon that. Because I'm sure he's a Protoss player, so he knows PvP pretty well. He knows PvT pretty well, and even PvZ. So if you get those, he's going to just kind of be in that cruise control mode of being like, oh, he's doing this, blah, 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 blah. And it might be more insightful, but you need to start throwing him just crazy ZVZs or crazy ZVTs. And I think TVZ, did you say, is the least understanding matchup for you?
Yeah, actually, I would say ZVZ. Okay. TVZ, I think I'm starting to get a little bit of a better understanding of, just because I'm seeing it so much in GSL. But, you know, ZVZ, definitely submit me all of those, as I want, like, all of the crazy base trade ones. I want the ones where there's, like, a Zergling, Baneling micro going on, and you're, like, want to punch the other person in the face, but you can't because they're in, like, Taiwan or, like, Korea or something, and, you know, because you're just frustrated, you just lost all your drones to Banelings, all those kind of crazy stuff. I want all of them. Yeah. Submit to me all of your I want your replay pack folder, okay? All 500 megabytes.
And I highly encourage you to do this, but just remember, anything he casts, he's going to have me watch it. So he's going to make it as entertaining as he can, which is awesome. But don't submit these very boring games, please. That's my request. Like, I want to see those Baneling, like, very early battles. I don't want to see, like, I have 20 burrowed roaches, and you have 20 burrowed roaches, and we're just going to wait.
Oh, shoot. Who unburrows I forgot first. My spawning pool. Guess I lose.
Yeah, and, like, just really obvious reasons why you lost, and forgetting that. But, like, if you did those mistakes and then came back, that can be just huge. Of just like, wow, this guy, his early game may not be good, but his late game is awesome, and that's why he won. And that's also individually how to get better and coaching and all that fun stuff. But not only does Fear Dragon do replay submissions for casting, I have 2 internet shows, which I have one on Tuesday, which is Tearing It Up, and Theory Crafting Thursdays, which I went on hiatus for a couple weeks because I was doing traveling for work-related things, and then I was participating in tournaments, so I had to make sure I was getting enough time to practice for those. But I want to start getting back into it. Today's Sunday. Tuesday, I'm actually going to talk about my TVT build that I like to do, to not only talk about it more in detail to let everyone else know what I do, but to also have me understand it better. I know the main flaws with it currently, but I want to be able to know how to scout and adapt, because I think that's the best way to play rather than blindly go something. And then Theory Crafting Thursdays, just fun. I think they're fun. They can be a little bit boring if you're not into that mindset. Like, if you just want to see Banelings explode, just watch Banelings explode. And there's nothing wrong with that. But some examples of Theory Crafting Thursdays is my first show, which I highly recommend, which is on the triangularity theory, which is a very old theory that came up, I think, like in the 60s, related to video games and all that stuff. Definitely check that out. But that day isn't restricted to even a race. A lot of the shows, I don't even look at StarCraft 2, so it's a global theory crafting kind of show. And then I also offer coaching for anything. Even though I'm not the best player, I can see where people can improve on, what strategies they're really good with, and all that stuff. That was a long time of me talking of what I do.
Absolutely wonderful, though. Yeah, I definitely recommend everyone go. I actually learned a lot about just Terran and as well as some of the other matchups from just hearing Curtis talk about them. He talks about a lot of very interesting things that might even go beyond StarCraft. I do recall one of his Theory Crafting Thursdays, as it's called, actually involved a lot of ideas taken from poker.
Yes.
So you hear a lot of really cool and interesting things that you might not otherwise find, stuff you might not find on like Team Liquid's forums or Reddit. So go check those out. You can learn a lot, and I think the best part about it is that Curtis actually has also that hands-on experience of, you'll play the game and he'll help you kind of like walk through all the steps. Especially if you're one of those players that's kind of struggling in one of the lower leagues, I would definitely suggest checking out his show. It's kind of like a Day 9 daily, but maybe a little bit cooler.
A little bit? No.
Because you see Day 9.
Don't even start. Don't even start with that. No, not even starting it.
We actually have evidence that Day 9 is watching this show, because every single time he does a topic for Theory Crafting Thursday, Day 9 does a daily on it a week later.
No, not that. I'll announce what I'm doing for the next week's show, and he'll do it the day before I do that show. He did that like 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and it was really ridiculous.
You have to look. You really have to run a virus scanner and look for that spyware. Because he definitely has it on your computer.
Day 9 just hacks everyone's computer related to StarCraft 2. That's why he has a folder called Horse Porn.